Now that we've been around for 20 years, hardly anybody ever asks, why did we start CMM? We really began with a simple cause: to assist church planters to start healthy and reproducing churches, to consult with some churches for health, and we needed to start a new church planting network here in Greater Atlanta. After starting 2 churches, both from scratch, with Rachel and our 3 young daughters, and being the Southeast Regional Coordinator with our denomination, we accepted a call in 2000 to come to Atlanta to work with a church planting network that had been around for about a decade. However, within the first 18 months, those pastors of the network decided to close it down. I was given 18 more months to try to figure out what God's call was for my next role. I'm really not that smart, and I don't have great skills. However, I was experienced in church planting and training and assessing planters along the way. But most importantly, we were available to the Lord to whatever He asked us to do. And so we prayed. And by the way, without Rachel's prayers and generosity and hospitality to hundreds of pastors over the years, not much of this would have happened. But God opened a pathway for us to start CMM, a nonprofit ministry with a great new board. And really all we planned to do was to coach some church planters, help a few churches that would find my consulting beneficial, and to launch a new church planting network here in Atlanta. There was never a master plan, not even a 5-year plan to increase CMM. It was just me, simple and an uncomplicated ministry. After a short time, I was constantly traveling, coaching, consulting, training, and our board said, "Tom, you can't keep doing this on your own. It's too valuable, what we're doing. We need to plan to make more Toms." And so we added another partner to the ministry who was very, very helpful during that season. In about 2007, we started training other church planting coaches. And I completed a doctorate with a dissertation on gospel coaching for church planters. It was through that I pioneered a new kind of coaching with gospel centrality in the process. I wanted to be focused on church planters in the U.S. And so we added a couple of new staff coaches along the way. You see, from 2004 to 2014, we were seeing an unprecedented number of church plants being started. It was estimated between 3,500 to 4,000 new churches were being started every year. But by late 2015 and into 2016, I noticed that church planting began to slow and plateau. And during 2018, the bottom dropped out. And then, of course, we all know 2020 came and COVID wiped it all out. Someone once said, when it comes to organizations, change is inevitable, and everything is a prototype. That's true for churches and for us at CMM. We're in another unprecedented time. The expectation of Christian leaders in today's world is more complex than at any other point in history, alongside of the fact that we're having a spiritual crisis. There's a myriad of decisions that they have to make, and they're complex. They have to know a lot about a lot. Some of the pastors are burning out at a serious rate. Others have said it's a looming crisis upon our land. Some leaders who are called to keep at it, they need a guide to help them know what to do next and the skills to develop in a very fast-paced, changing world. Many of them feel isolated and alone. And they're asking, am I making the best decision relationally, with my wife, with my kids, with the people that I'm serving? Am I making the best decisions for me personally? How about in my job and spiritually? Church planters, pastors, chaplains, women in leadership, they all need a coach, someone who's connecting the gospel, renewing dynamics of heart with the strategic leader role that God's given them. And that coach will help increase their health. That is, they become guides to them to make the best decisions for their survivability, so they can overcome the aloneness factors and the anxiety that they feel, and their thrivability, so that they excel at leading others in the mission that God has them on. Our primary focus is to provide a gospel coach to 3,000 leaders by 2030. I firmly believe after 40 years of ministry that every Christian leader deserves a gospel coach. It's not consulting, where we tell the leader what to do, and it's not non-directive, where we simply just ask the leader questions in hopes that they can figure out what they're supposed to do next. It's an integration. It's a conversation with both heart and skill development connected. So still here in the USA, we're having gospel coaching for leaders. We have a great team of a dozen professional gospel coaches. But it's not just planters or pastors anymore. We recognize the need to gospel coach women in leadership. And so we invited Olivia Jackson as our Director of Women's Coaching.
My name's Olivia Jackson, and I serve as the Women's Coaching Director for CMM. I serve in this role because I know the importance of it personally. I'm the wife of a church planter, and when my husband and I planted our church in 2010, I was simultaneously raising 4 young kids and helping him and our core team launch important ministries in our church. I, at that time, was graced by God to have a coach that walked alongside me and not only helped me know how to get from point A to point B as we launched new ministries, but also to remind me of the importance of the gospel and all of it. In my time working with CMM, it's been my joy to come alongside women from lots of various contexts, some serving on staff at churches, some pastors' wives and church planners' wives, some serving in missions context. So being a gospel coach, I'm, by God's grace, alongside to remind them of the hope that they have in the gospel, no matter what they're facing. When I dream and hope about the next 5 years for CMM, I have a couple big asks. It's been my joy in my short time working with CMM to see God raise up a team of women who are serving alongside of me in this ministry. We have one woman in the UK, another woman in the US, and I'd love to see the Lord multiply that impact. I would love to see 20 women globally who are doing the same thing that I'm doing, coming alongside of women in their ministries and helping them to be more effective and gospel-centered in their calling. I would love to see women who are training and coaching in Italian and Spanish and Mandarin. I would love for us to learn how to work together and support one another in this important work of gospel coaching.
As I said, we're always adapting. And so we partnered with the PRCC to provide coaches to chaplains. Dr. Don Sampson, a trained coach and both retired Army colonel and PCA pastor, said chaplains, military, first responders, corporate chaplains typically are isolated and alone, making hard life decisions with and alongside others and their families. And they need a gospel coach.
I'm Don Sampson. I serve as a Director of Gospel Coaching for chaplains with CMM. My primary calling, though, is with the PRCC, the Presbyterian Reformed Commission on Chaplains and Military Personnel. I serve as one of the associate endorsers for the PRCC. The PRCC provides endorsements and training and pastoral support to about 335 chaplains from 7 denominations around the world. We have chaplains serving on the front lines of ministry, in prisons and in hospitals, serving as volunteers chaplains with first responders in police stations and in firehouses. We also have some corporate chaplains. We have chaplains serving in hospice organizations and retirement communities, and of course many military chaplains are serving as well. We have chaplains on active duty as well as some in the reserves and many in the National Guard. After 25 years in the Marine Corps, I know for certain that our chaplains serving in the military and other organizations need a gospel coach. I arrived here in Northern Virginia about 25 years ago and planted a church, and then about 10 years ago I began receiving the benefits of gospel coaching. So I know firsthand how important it is to have someone come alongside you, to challenge you, to pray for you, and of course to help you set your priorities and goals and objectives. But most importantly, my gospel coach has always helped me to consider how I can apply the gospel to whatever situation I'm in. Our chaplains need that same encouragement and support. Chaplaincy can be very lonely, very isolating, but our gospel coaches come alongside our chaplains in a variety of settings and help them serve our Lord. So I'm very excited as we look ahead We look back at these past 20 years with CMN, but as we look ahead, we see tremendous opportunity to continue to provide gospel coaching to our chaplains. So far, we've provided gospel coaching for about 20 of our chaplains, but as I said, we have 335 chaplains around the world, and many more applying every day to become chaplains. So, join me in this exciting adventure as we press ahead over the next 20 years providing gospel coaching for our chaplains.
We spent the first 10 years primarily working in the USA with over 1,000 churches. And in the last 10 years, we provided approximately 12,000 hours of coaching. We have a 93% approval evaluation by the people that we've served. But then in 2014, we were invited into Cuba through a mutual friendship with a mentor and friend, Dr. Alan Thompson. I had no idea if gospel coaching would work cross-culturally. But Dr. Pachi Casada, the president of Los Pinos Nuevos Churches, told us that the need was there. And so we went. Over the last decade, through our gospel patrons, we've contributed around $2 million to Cuba. And what's the return on that investment? Well, they're witnessing a multiplication movement of new converts, an explosion of thousands of new house churches with pastors and planters. And they need to sustain their spiritual and missional lives through gospel coaching and their physical lives through the food containers that we're able to send in. And by God's grace, through a gospel patron, we were able to add Pastor Alexis Sanchez as the part-time CMM Director of Gospel Coaching to train up new coaches for the movement that they're currently experiencing. A couple of years ago, we were invited into the UK to help with the UK Partnership of Churches in England and Scotland. We were asked to provide the sustaining and strategic assistance to their church planting movement. So God, through the assistance of some gospel patrons, allowed me to develop a UK version, which is a reproducible and sustainable ecosystem for gospel coaching within the UK. And God raised up in England a new director of gospel coaching, Reverend Matt Waldock.
Hi, my name is Matt Waldock and I'm the Director of Gospel Coaching UK. Since 2019, when Dr. Tom Wood brought gospel coaching to the UK, we've seen 106 leaders trained to become coaches. 23 of them have been women. And that means that we've seen over 200 leaders who have participated in gospel coaching relationships. But our dream is much bigger than that. We would love to see gospel coaching become a vital and normal part of any healthy and thriving leadership ecosystem in this country. And with that in mind, we're working with over 17 different denominations and networks across the UK, seeing how we can bring gospel coaching to bear fruit within their organisations. We're in a key time in the UK. Many leaders are leaving the ministry, many are burning out. But there are loads of opportunities. Many different people from right across the world are coming to the UK, and for the very first time in years, we're seeing the green shoots of new leaders putting their hand up and saying that I want to go into ministry, I want to serve the Lord wherever He may send me. This is a key time for us to train coaches and deploy them amongst these leaders, these men and women who are stepping up into the front line. Imagine a country full of healthy, sustainable, and multiplying leaders. Well, that's not just good news for the UK, it's not just good news for Europe, it's good news for the world. And I would love you to help and pray towards that end. Thank you.
In June of 2024, a total of 48 men and women, 28 leaders from Italy and 20 from the Ukraine, France, Switzerland, Taiwan, Scotland, and Germany completed the two-day Gospel Coaching Foundations. By invitation with a new partner, Italy for Christ, which was founded in 1983, we've been asked to train a gospel coaching leader there who will provide their leadership and pastors in their networks with trained gospel coaches for health and sustainability. In October 2024, some 28 leaders will gather in Switzerland and will go through the first Gospel Coaching Foundations training with CMM staff and trainers. We have requests now to train in Italy, Sicily, Germany, France, Pakistan, and the Ukraine. We have to be resource ready. God has raised up Paul Walker, our VP, of global partnership.
Hey everybody, my name is Paul Walker and I'm in South Florida and I'm part of the CMM staff. I'm here in Georgia because we just finished this week a foundations class for over 30 men and women from all over the United States and Canada. So I love CMM, I love what God's doing with it. This past June, we were in Italy. We had 35 men and women from all over the world come. As far as Taiwan, Ukraine, Pakistan, France, I could go on and on, all the countries that were there. And it was just a blessing to see how the gospel affected them. We had people at that training say that for the first time they understood how to apply the gospel to their lives. So I'm excited about where God's taking us. In about 2 weeks, we're going to be going to Switzerland because of that meeting in Rome. We're going to be training another 30 men and women on how to do gospel coaching with our foundations class. We have opportunities to go to the Dominican Republic, to go to France. Just 2 weeks ago, a gentleman from Ireland came and met with Tom and I in Atlanta, and he wants us to come and present CMM to Irish evangelical churches. And so I am just blessed by what God's doing. And let me tell you, it's not us pushing doors open and trying to get people to buy into CMM. It's people hearing about it, experiencing it, and saying, hey, will you come and bring this to the people I work with? I'm all in. I'm a true believer of CMM. I know you are. And whether you've been a part of the ministry for 20 years or just 2 weeks, we want to invite you to continue to be a part. This is an exciting time in the life of CMM. And we want you to continue to pray for us. For some of you, that means financially you're going to be able to contribute, but also it means maybe you go on one of these trips with us and see what God's doing around the world. So I'm excited about what God has done. You know, today we're remembering where God has taken us and His faithfulness and His goodness in the ministry and in our lives. But I'm also excited about where we're going. And I'm excited about where the Holy Spirit is directing us. We have an incredible goal. A goal of 3,000 trained coaches by 2030. And we want you to help be a part of that. Thanks a lot.
CMM has maintained its mission focus of empowering leaders to multiply the gospel into their spheres of influence. CMM envisions by 2030, 3,000 leaders that are advancing vibrant, multiplying, grace-saturated churches, missions, ministries, or nonprofits through gospel coaching relationships and grace-renewing resources. But here's the thing. We believe it will be sparked by prayer movements and by generous gospel patrons around the world. I am personally indebted to the men and women, churches that have prayed, and those who've participated in training, been coached, or assisted by one of our teams. And of course, our staff team and 12 professional coaches. Our board of directors, past and current, for the time and love, and all of our gospel patrons along the way. God's method of helping God's people is God's people. The influence is global. Join the movement of gospel influence. Get a coach, be a coach. Be a gospel patron. Change a life, change a nation.